These days, I see this so often. People they try to look rich, right? They try to look rich. They want to look rich instead of trying to actually be rich. And now it's really like interesting. Look at the very rich people, like most wealthy people, Mark Zuckerberg. Look at how they dress, you know? Simple, simple.
My interaction with our guest for this episode, Weyni Tesfai, was through her YouTube channel, Plan Back to Africa. And I was like, we have to make this happen.
Kenyans inside the community who asked me, yeah, we want to start an Airbnb business. Is it, we have a property in mind, an apartment in a new real estate development complex. Should we buy? Do you recommend for us to buy? And I always tell everyone who starts this business, don't buy.
Weyni Tesfai is building a real estate empire focusing on short-term rentals, and she's not one to gatekeep ideas.
Many people ask me, oh, Weyni, I want to invest into an apartment. I want to invest into an Airbnb business in Africa. And I see you manage it remotely, and they ask me, what is the ROI, you know? Is it worth it?
Our conversation is happening at Wojo, Nairobi. If you're ever in need of a fully furnished office space, and if you're familiar with the co-sharing office arrangement, please get in touch with Wojo through the contact details on your screen. Lakini kabla tuzame kwa hii conversation, now it's no secret that to succeed in business today, you need an online presence. In fact, you don't even need a physical location. You can have your whole operation online and you're still making good money. You're still kicking it. You're still kicking it. Take a school, for example. Let's say you have ideas of how you can offer online courses. Why the headaches? Yet Odoo has a fully dedicated e-learning application, fully kitted with all the features you need, such that all you're left to do is just load the content. The Odoo e-learning app allows you to manage your courses, contacts, and participants smoothly and seamlessly. The dashboard is intuitive and user-friendly, showing important metrics like views, comments, and reviews. And that's not all. The Odoo e-learning app allows you to change menus to showcase different content. You can also filter or group courses to make navigation easier. Now, creating a course on the Odoo e-learning platform is super easy and intuitive. Just a few clicks and you're in the system. And just in case you need assistance, there's an Odoo expert on standby and ready to assist you. And here's the best part. You get to choose a time and date of your choosing. Think about it. You have a skill that you can package into a course and offer online to people who need your knowledge. And as if that's not enough, you can monetize it. The Odoo e-learning app will come in handy for you. Why look for gigs when you can create your own? Get started with the link shared in the description below. And the best part, you can get this app free of charge, including hosting and support. That is if you choose it as your first app on the Odoo platform. To educators out there, get into the online space with Odoo. We've shared a link for you in the description below. So, in terms of how history is told and the result of what history is, the conversation of on oppressors and the oppressed becomes blurred with time. My favorite example has to be the British at some point were considered oppressors. But the people who are oppressed by the so-called British today rank each other, most people actually rank each other by how well you can speak the language of the so-called oppressor. People actually look down upon people who cannot express themselves in English. But how does that language come about? Is this to say that over a period of time, the victims get to forget and it's not about trauma anymore, they absorb the pride?
First of all, you know, one thing that I learned is that it's better for us if we go beyond the strict victim-perpetrator binary, you know, because I truly believe that victims can be oppressors too, you know? I believe that every single one of us is not just a victim, you know, but also a perpetrator, or let's say a beneficiary of oppression.
That's the myth of pure evil?
Means of pure evil? I mean...
the myth of pure evil that explains that when someone has killed someone, for example, yes, people tend to assume that the victim is innocent, but the victim could as well have been the perpetrator.
I'm not thinking of it in terms of like extreme violence and killing. What I mean is, for instance, you can be, let's take the example of the British ruling Kenya, right? They were oppressing Kenyans, right? They were having racist views, seeing Africans in general as less, as primitive, backwards, right?
Yes.
And that makes, like, by definition, the British the perpetrator and the Africans as the victims, right? However, there are different hierarchical structures within our societies where the victims in this demographics that we're talking about in Kenya can be the perpetrators.
Very true, yes.
Like, for instance, like ethnic supremacy, religious discrimination, that you look down on people who have a different faith, you know? And when this also manifests itself in inequality, right? Then you can say, even you don't have to be oppressing. Let me take the example, for instance, look at our fashion industry, for instance, right? Many things are produced on exploitative labor. The phones that we have from the exploitation of children of Congo. So while we are not directly involved in the harm and not perpetrating, we are not the perpetrators, we are benefiting from the oppression and exploitation of others, you know?
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And so I think that's more helpful, because if we reflect and really introspect, that if we stop seeing ourselves only as the victim, right, but also see how we are involved and implicated in crimes elsewhere, here or elsewhere, right, that makes it easier for us to develop solidarity with others. If that makes sense. Like solidarity in terms of, how can I explain? That when you have experienced something, right, and somebody elsewhere has experienced the same thing, then it's easier to build solidarity and also, you know, reflect on your own implications in crime, and you can change your consumerism, you know? Like, you don't have to have the newest iPhone all the time. You can live more mindful, and you will start to question the stories that you were raised with, you know? And ask yourself, okay, if I'm against this ideology that we are better than others, that if I'm against only one story being told, and I'm at the receiving end of those, I'm part of the society that opposes the overarching narrative, right? And then you criticize that. But then you look within your own society and see, well, we are not just victims. What are we doing to this group of people, like on a micro level? That way, you question the story and understand that if we want to build solidarity within our small circle, then we have to include opposing voices, contesting voices of those that we ourselves oppress, right? And at the same time, you realize, I'm not better than those I'm criticizing. In the end, we are all hypocrites, in a way. I truly believe that, you know?
Yeah, true.
So in some way or the other, and that is what I mean by understanding that, it's easier to develop empathy also for the people that you feel are the evil ones, the perpetrator ones, when we move beyond this perpetrator-victim binary, if that makes sense.
It does, and you have a beautiful YouTube channel, and I'm glad you said what you said, and I'll explain what I mean. Weyni has a YouTube channel, Naitwa Plan Back to Africa, very deep content, solid, and I'm glad we've captured that at the beginning of this conversation. Like what you say, I like strong words, consumerism. That's a very, it's a very simple word, but it carries a lot of weight, right? One of your latest videos that I've watched, you talk about things, the things that keep you locked into the debt system, credits, and lock you down. In fact, there's words like what the West doesn't want you to see, what scares, like strategies like what they do to keep people afraid of investing in Africa. So one of them is consumerism. And you actually bring it up from, when you say you don't have to have the latest iPhone, right? And the system, just to tie back to what you've explained before this, what we're discussing in terms of inheriting, okay? Capitalism as a system is also an inherited system. And one of its best feeding, its best strategies where it grows from, or its tributaries, it's consumerism. It feeds off of that. I saw someone put, and I don't know why I love this example. So someone put up an iPhone charger, an iPhone, the original iPhone. It came with a charger, the brick, the cable, a set of earphones. But today, it just comes with the phone and the cable.
You have to buy the charger
You have
separately.
to buy the charger for extra. So this is capitalism at play. And the person who had actually quoted that tweet was like, they just want you to pay more for what you used to get for. So they look for strategies. The system looks for strategies to actually get you to spend more. And I believe this goes into like the enemy of disposable income. The same thing packaged differently. First of all, they give you the whole phone. You need the whole ecosystem. You can't use the phone without the charger there. Then sasa once you are dependent on the phone, they take away this so that you can buy it separately, right? We've inherited that system, but it plays into our psyche of consumerism, the need to spend more. Is it possible to break out of consumerism?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think first it's important to understand why someone has the urge to have the newest iPhone, the newest sneakers, you know? And I think the reason why I can just speak from my experience growing up, the main issue was the way that the society I grew up in Germany, and I would say most capitalistic societies, the way they define success, right? And that is, like for instance, having the newest iPhone, you know, having the biggest car, the biggest house, showing off expensive luxury travels on social media. And because especially social media has created, like we are living in a time where people are constantly comparing themselves to others, right? What they are seeing on social media, which makes themselves less worthy. They feel like they are falling behind, they are losing in life. And because of that, and because of not understanding that it's not always real what you see on social media, I'm not saying everything, right? But there are so many grifters on social media there are people who take credit in advance to travel the world with the goal to become a successful content creator, travel content creator. So they go into debt before they make even their first dollar. And I think that's because of that. People don't see the reality behind the things they see on social media. And also, I think the urge to flex your belongings, right, stems from like deep-seated insecurity and the desire for external validation, social validation. So these days, I see this so often. People like, they try to look rich, right? They try to look rich. They want to look rich instead of trying to actually be rich. And now it's really like interesting. Look at the very rich people, like most wealthy people, Mark Zuckerberg. Look at how they dress, you know? Simple.
They try to look poor.
They try to look poor, while the poor are trying to look rich. And that's how they get trapped in this money trap, debt trap.
Would you say for that example, Mike Zuckerberg could probably have the same insecurities, but he doesn't have to deal with that. He doesn't need to show it through how he dresses, because you already know.
Yeah, I would say yes, that he has achieved already so much in life, right? That this is where he gets his validation from. He doesn't need validation from others, right? It's like if you let your actions speak for themselves, if you try to find validation from within, if you don't depend on validation from others, but get it from your achievements, right? As a result, like the effort that you put in your work, your business, whatever, and you see, wow, I can do it, I made it, right? Then you don't, like, you stop caring what others think, especially when you have a purpose. When, like, this is like one of the biggest problems, people care too much about what others think. That's also at the root of having the urge to flex, and at the root issue of consumerism. Because why do you do that? Why do you have the need to feel the need to have these new gadgets, clothes, right? Because it's probably because you care too much about what other people think of you, more than what you think of yourself.
How do you unlock this mindset for you?
I think realizing that people will always judge you. That's one thing I realized in my life. People will judge you really when you have nothing, right? They will say, you're poor, look at you, you know? They will judge you when you try to build something, when you're trying to build and achieve something. They will say, they will try to humble you. Who do you think you are, you know? And they will judge you when you have everything, you know? But nobody, I always say that that's what I also realized from starting my YouTube journey, from starting my real estate business. Nobody judges you more than someone who has less than you. Like, you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You will not laugh at someone who just started his YouTube channel, you know, because you know how hard it is, and you are too focused on growing, you know, and on you know, creating more content on your business.
Yes.
But it's always that people who have less than you, who secretly like envy you for having the courage to go out there, that will judge you.
So you choose where you want to be judged. You do want to be judged as a poor person, or you just focus on yourself and be judged for having everything?
I would frame it differently. I used to care about what people think of me. People who are not where I want to be in life. People where I actually think, Jesus, I rebuke you. I never want to have your life, you know? And I allow these people to judge my decisions, my dreams. So, and I also realized that caring about what other people think, it's human, you know? It's human. We cannot, there is no way you say, oh, I don't care at all about what people think, because we are social human beings and we need social validation from others. But instead of trying to change what you actually cannot change the people who you are trying to impress. That is what helped me. So I started changing my circle, surround myself with people who are where I want to be in life. And so people where I believe they are worth impressing, you know? People who will respect me, who will empower me, mentor me, teach me, you know, and not look down on me. But because, as I said, right, someone who has more than you, who has achieved what you are trying to achieve, right, they will never judge you because they have been there themselves. And so instead of trying to not care about what other people think, just change the people that you're trying to impress, you know?
That's a powerful statement.
And also find something that's more important to care about. Like,
find something that's more important to care about.
Yes.
Caring what people say, it's not important.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Your channel name has a very bold, very creative, and a very direct name. Plan Back to Africa. What do you mean plan back to Africa when people in Africa are planning to go to Europe? What's going on there?
I get it, I understand. If I wouldn't have the means, right, wouldn't have the access to education, resources. If I would, let's say, if I was in the shoes of my cousins who were born and raised in Ethiopia and are trapped, right, trying to get by every day with small jobs, then of course, like, Europe is paradise for someone who doesn't have a proper education, who cannot afford to have 3 meals a day, you know? And
Wow.
so, you know, Europe is really paradise. I mean, when I say Europe, I mean Western Europe,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, who have a social welfare system where you get child support, all these things, you know, where you get scholarships for your studies and things like that. But when you when you start to build something in Europe, right? When you have either achieved certain levels in terms of education, work profession, and whatever, and especially when you start making money, then Europe is hell, actually, you know? Then it's better to go to your country because you can achieve much, much more. And there's also like kind of a cap for how far they allow you to grow in Europe, you know, as an African person, as a black person, you know?
For real?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you want, it's so difficult to get into certain leadership positions, you know? And let's say just becoming a CEO of a big company, you know, it's mostly a white male person that has this position. And so there's racism at the workplace, trying people who will always try to like put you in your place, what they believe, you know, where you belong to. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But for me, Plan Back to Africa came mainly from a desire to go where I am valued, you know, where I am appreciated, where I'm not seen as less, because as I said, when you reach a certain level of independence financially, or even if not financially, you know, having skills, if that makes sense, right? Having the skills and the knowledge on how you can make money and succeed is also an incredible asset, right? And if you have that, then you have the choice that many people don't have. The choice, do I remain here, right? And deal with this nonsense, like racism, discrimination at workplace, you know, high taxes, like the government in Germany, they take almost 50% of your money, you know? And then on top of that, they invested into funding wars elsewhere. That's the most horrible part about it.
I don't want us to lose that train of thought, but there's when you say they take almost 50% of your money in taxes, politicians in Kenya have always used that to say, to use it as an excuse to justify the 30-35% they take from Kenyans, right? But then again, Kenyans, on the other hand, have always argued, you'd rather take the 50%, yes, but we have the amenities that we need. Isn't that the case in a country like Germany? Do they
Absolutely.
take 50% and you have everything such that in terms of liquid cash, you don't need it that much?
I mean, when I say they take 50% of your money, it's the healthcare system, right? At least they invest, you know, into the infrastructure of the country, the healthcare system, education system, and things like that, you know, if that makes sense. So I'm all for taxes, but it should be to the benefit of the people also. If that is not the case, of course, then it's a scam. And it also becomes a scam when a country like Germany then chooses to fund wars and genocide with your taxes, if that makes sense.
They still do that?
They are, I think, the second biggest supplier of weapons and arms to Israel. Yes.
The second
After
largest?
the US, yeah. Second biggest arms supplier.
And what do they get in return for that?
Oh, you don't really want to get into that. We will still be here until tomorrow. It's rooted in the history, you know, because Germany has committed a genocide against the Jews, you know, during the Second World War. And it's kind of a wrong guilt, you know, a wrong guilt they feel towards the state of Israel. They made it, you know, defending Israel and defending the Zionist regime that is in power in Israel became the reason of state. That's how it's literally called. And, you know, it's an unspoken law in Germany that the security of the Israeli state and the Zionists is the reason of state, of the state of Germany. The reason of being, that's the...
It's like a make good for what the Hitler regime did.
Yes, kind of, like a wrong guilt, and it's it became the main identity in Germany, you know? If you don't acknowledge Israel, you cannot be considered really as a German.
Okay.
Regardless whether that's what we talked about, the victims became the perpetrators, you know, it's at all costs.
Okay, I'll also go do my research on that specific bit. But then again, still on the taxes, because we are on planning back to Africa, still on the taxes, as someone who understands money very well actually, and I strongly recommend your channel, you understand money very well. I respect your perspective on money. When Karibu, when they take 50%, in a country like Germany, is it accurate to say that beyond the other things they may be involved in, you still don't feel the value for your money?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the education system, for instance, what is the value if the school curriculum in Germany teaches my children that they are less worthy, right?
Directly.
Yes, there are certain things that cannot be measured in terms of numbers, right?
Yes.
Same with ROI, you know, investing in Africa. Like if you live in Germany and, okay, you pay taxes and you have this infrastructure like free education, but what education? What is the quality of education? What is the impact on the self-image and self-confidence of an African young child of this education that is looking at Africa, presenting Africa, and telling the history of Africa as a place of backwardness, a place of misery, no achievements, you know? And so what is the value of that? For me, I didn't see no value in that. And on the contrary, it's very damaging, you know?
That shows top-level involvement in even what your child is learning in school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So what's the process like for you? What's the process like for you to now, you have a background in hospitality, you've done cultural anthropology. What's the process like for you, starting with what really broke the camel's back and you're like, I'm going to invest in Africa?
So it was a process, a long process, I would say. So, and that is basically, of course, I wasted years. I came quite late. I see people now, young people, young professionals leaving behind Germany, the US, at the age of 23, 22, you know. I left Europe when I was 32, you know, when I first moved to Ethiopia. and left Germany behind. And I wasted years because I felt stuck. And that is also because of the limiting beliefs that I had, you know. So the plan to one day resettle to the African continent and raise my children on the African continent. I mean, you know, when I don't want to generalize, you know, I had certain countries in mind already, my home country primarily. But because of the experience I made, I knew I don't want to raise my children here, because also my values were not in alignment with the values in Germany, you know. And so the desire was always there. But before I was actually able to do that, it was a long process, unlearning those limiting beliefs that you have, the negative beliefs about money, about success, about what you're capable of, you know?
What were those negative beliefs?
So many things, actually, to be honest. I don't even know where I should start. And that was also part of the process, why it took so long, because so many carry negative and limiting beliefs about what they are capable of achieving, about money, about success, but they don't even know what, they cannot identify them. They don't even know, because they work on auto mode, you know, everything they do in life, everyday life, is like by default, because of the way we have been programmed. And this can be cultural, for instance, you know, like the way you were raised, cultural upbringing, for instance, the way you see, that shapes a lot the way you see money. Just let me give you an example. In many Ethiopian cultures, including my culture, from the region where I'm from, there is a romanticization of poverty. You know, they romanticize poverty and they see having money, making money, as something evil. And what effect does that have, this belief? It has the effect and the belief that you believe you don't deserve success. You believe you don't deserve making money, you know, because you will feel guilty about that, you know? And that's because of the romanticization of poverty. That's just one example. Then there is in Germany, German society, I said it before, that's the hill I'm going to die on. Germany has a culture of envy, you know, and that's not just what foreigners say, that's what Germans say. Like when somebody is successful and is making money, you will get 99% negative responses to your success. People will try to discredit your success. They will try to, you know, reverse excuse your success. Say things like, oh, she just made money because she had rich parents, or because many people tell me, for instance, you are only able to get this far because you have a German passport. You are privileged. You are only crushing it on YouTube because you are pretty. Otherwise, nobody will listen to you. You know, they discredit you, you know, they try to take away your effort. That's also one big thing that keeps many people stuck, you know. And also the fear of failure, you know. The fear of failure. That's, I think, the main thing that keeps people stuck and from moving to the African continent, investing in the African continent. That combined with the negative stories that you hear every day, you know, the stories about failure, scams, corruption in the media, even on YouTube, they outnumber the stories of entrepreneurs who became successful, innovation, resilience, opportunity on the African continent. And so the first step for me to break free and actually make the move to the African continent was becoming aware of my own negative and limiting beliefs. And then it started especially with this mindset, changing my mindset. And that was actually like the turning point for me. The turning point was trying to think positive instead of negative. Instead of thinking to myself, what if I fail? You know, what if it doesn't work out when I go to Ethiopia? I asked myself, what if I win? What if I succeed? You know? And that's the interesting thing, because I believe your thoughts, they become your reality. You know, if you constantly believe, I will fail, I'm scared to fail, then this will become your reality in terms of you will not even dare to try, you know? And then when you shift your mindset from, this was also like shifting your mindset, right? In terms of like also money, right? And success is not something that happens overnight, because imagine you have been programmed over decades since childhood. So you cannot reverse that in one night. It's a process, right? And part of the process for me was realizing that failure is part of success.
Failure is part of success.
It's part of the process. It's part of the process, right? Like you will fail, period, you know, but you will get up again, you will learn, you will get out stronger, wiser, you will try again. That's the whole part of it. And so that was basically the foundation that I had to build in terms of my mindset to allow me to dare and go to Ethiopia. But that is something that is internal, that happens internally. But then there was one external event that told me, now I have no other choice but to leave. And that was when the right-wing party came into power in 2015, you know? Something that was unthinkable in Germany, with a history like Germany, seeing that a racist party, like openly racist party, gets enough votes to make it into parliament. And now everyone was laughing, nobody was taking them seriously. They are now the second strongest party in Germany. And my prediction is that they will win the next elections. And so
And
it
that's
was
a reflection of who the people are. People say
exactly.
that. So now, how you get to Germany from Ethiopia is through your parents. They moved to Germany from Ethiopia as immigrants.
Yes,
They
as
immigrated
refugees.
As refugees, right? So to someone would argue that is this a proper process? Like your experience in Germany is different from your parents' experience, right? So someone in Africa looking at Germany from your parents' perspective, like would you advise them to go get the opportunity, go build, so that their children can have a different experience in Africa?
Absolutely, especially when you come with nothing, right? I mean, my parents, they didn't have no other choice. It was a do or die game. You know, when you're fleeing from civil war, then it's sometimes the only way to save your life, right? And I think I would, of course, right? Like, save yourself. Make sure your children can have a better future. But make sure your children stay connected and rooted to their culture. My mother, she refused to speak in German with us because she said, it's funny, sometimes I ask her, because I struggle teaching my kids my mother language, you know? My daughter, she understands, she speaks a little bit, she understands everything, but my son, now I'm trying to get them to learn Swahili, you know? I asked my mom, how did you manage teaching us our language? She said, I would ignore you when you speak in German to me. And I remember you were crying, begging, throwing tantrums outside for me, ignoring you when you spoke to me. So I forced you to speak in our native language so that, you know, you will be heard and get the attention you were needing at that moment. And so she sacrificed a lot, because for her it meant that she never really learned German, you know, because in our household we would only speak our mother language, Tigrinya, which is spoken in Eritrea and in northern Ethiopia. And what fascinates me, until the age of 3, when I went to kindergarten, right, I couldn't speak a single word of German. So, and then on top of that, she made sure that once she had a job, was able to put some money aside to take us to Eritrea and Ethiopia every 2 to 3 years, you know, to learn our culture, to stay connected with family, you know, and so, yeah.
Whoa.
That was very important for her.
It's an interesting maternal instinct, because my mother is the only person in our family who can't speak the language of the place we grew up in. And it was embarrassing how she did not care where you are. She would speak to you in your mother tongue. It's a very interesting maternal instinct, actually. Then now, it also brings us to, I'm a big fan of philosophical ideas. So if you, as your mother's child, got an opportunity in a foreign country to be this conscious, right? But that same country does not present the same opportunity to your child. What changed? Culture or time?
Time in terms of if it was different, the opportunities back then than today, or?
Yes. Because you as your parent's child, you get an opportunity to become this conscious. But the same country does not present the same opportunity to your children, right? Is it because times have changed? Is it because cultures have changed? Is it because at the level at which you're playing at before you leave Germany, is you've seen the ceiling that you can't grow beyond?
Yeah, I would say it's the latter. Like, for instance, there is a trend across Europe. You see it in France, in Belgium, Germany, the UK, that it's the second generation immigrant kids are now leaving Europe en masse and going back to their country, while the parents, right, and the older siblings prefer to stay in Europe, you know, in that country. And I think the reason why is, so I have older brothers, right? They're significantly older than me. I was born in Germany when I was safe. They were born in Eritrea and Ethiopia. And so they had it difficult when they arrived in Europe. They experienced trauma, they experienced racism. They were among the first immigrants, you know, who came as teenagers. They experienced police brutality. And some of them, they also made it in terms of they got a degree from university, right? And now the second generation, the younger siblings, us, we were actually the first German-born generation, my generation, in the 80s, late 80s. Now we look at the generation above us and we see already in their generation how far you can get. And that makes you lose hope, right? And that's the reason why many in my generation across Europe, Moroccans, they go back to Morocco. And that's interesting. While, for instance, my mother, she cannot imagine to leave Germany. That's the you know, when she came to Germany, they had so much hope they will return after 1 year. They were praying and they were faithful that the war will end after a year. That's why they refused to learn German, for instance. They said, for what? I'm going back home in a year anyway. But then imagine, 17 years, that's how long the Civil War lasted, you know? And then before you look, you know, time passes so fast, right? And you get comfortable. That's the thing. And the more you get comfortable and the stronger your limiting beliefs are, the more difficult it becomes for many to step out of their comfort zone. And that is so important if you want to grow, you know? So they choose comfort over courage. And my generation is a generation, and I think when I see how many young people, like in the age of 20, 21, are saying, I'm out, I don't care. I will make it in Africa. They build startups here, you know, build businesses. They manage to like really, you know, escape, like break free from this trap of fear and having the courage to try something new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So before we get into how you get into real estate, the first video I watched from your channel, you are shopping for furniture. That stuck in my head. It's actually in my notes as described. And my impression watching the video, you're shopping for furniture, and as you're moving around, you just make a comment. I think the comment was as simple as, this is actually overpriced. I could get this for much cheaper, right? If it's me looking at things from that perspective, there's no justification. It's a ripoff, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm processing that this is the first time you're actually interacting with prices from this perspective, like something being cheaper in Germany than it is in Kenya, that's a line of discouragement, mm-hmm. right? How do you interact with pricing in terms of something you know shouldn't cost much more than? How do you get hope to be part of a business with that culture?
So I must say, for me, like for instance, when I went to these malls and look at the furnitures there, I think for me, of course, the price factor was the main issue, mm-hmm. but I also felt that many pieces lacked authenticity and soul, you know?
That's something, as you said, yes.
That was actually like the main issue I had. I don't want to live in Kenya, Ethiopia, wherever, and wake up in a home that looks like a IKEA curated space, you know? IKEA, you know IKEA?
Yeah, I know IKEA.
Yes, so yes. That was the first issue I had. And then the second issue I had was value, you know, value of these things. Something can be expensive, okay, but when the way I treat every purchase now, and that was also like one thing that I learned, is like an equation, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I asked myself if the value that this thing that I want to purchase, right, is greater than the money that I pay to purchase this thing, then I'm going to buy it, you know, and if not, then not. But the problem with these furnitures was that the value, cheap pieces, cheap wood, and then trying to sell this bed for 200,000 shilling. What? Mm. You know? So that was the main issue I had. And then I made the experience in Ethiopia before, in Zanzibar, before I came to Kenya, how highly skilled fundis are. You can show them, they can make anything for you. They can build anything for you, basically. And so that gave me the confidence, my experience in Tanzania and in Ethiopia, to go this route, because I always want to have something that is unique. I always try to support also the local economy, you know. Of course, you cannot get everything from fundis. There are certain things like kitchen amenities, right? Then you have the fridge or laundry machine, whatever that was made in China is fine. But now, especially in Kenya, you have great local brands like Mika, you know. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say is like value, authenticity, and supporting the local economy, you know. These were my three driving.
You said how you make your purchase decisions now, which means this is a result of very many mistakes before. Is that accurate? For you to arrive at how you process value. And that's a very interesting way of looking at things. If the value you draw from the furniture is more than the price you're paying for it, right? Does this speak to your money mistakes before you now wrap your head around the concept of investment?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, one of the limiting beliefs that I had, right, and the negative beliefs also had a negative impact on my finances, that I stayed broke when I was in Germany. And that is because as I mentioned earlier, the mindset that you have on money, right, and on investment is personal, for everyone, and shaped by the circumstances that you grew up in, your childhood experiences, you know? And so growing up in Germany as a child of migrants, my mother, she was most of the time a cleaner, you know, and getting welfare, you know, was not able to really stand on her own feet without the support of the government. And I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for that. But it also shaped the way I see money, and I had a built-in fear of on spending money.
You
know?
had fear of spending money.
Exactly. Once I had money, this. I didn't have this mindset of abundance, right, and the trust and of what is a good expense. I treated everything as an expense, as like a waste of money. And you know, it was also like that's how I started my own business. Actually, that was the precondition for me to dive into this new chapter in my life, in this new journey, because I later realized if I somehow want to survive in this capitalistic environment that we are living in, right, I will have to spend some sort of money on it, like on a business, if I want to start a business, right? And so that was one of my milestones in my journey when I decided to invest in myself. So in 2017, I invested into an Airbnb masterclass. Actually, before already I invested. That was my first investment, but it was small. Like, I learned to invest in myself, that investing in yourself, like for instance, buying a course, an online course, or investing in a masterclass, investing in a skill, is not an expense, it's an investment. So I had to shift my mindset around that, you know? And so in 2017, I had my first online course, learned some skills, and in 2018, I joined a community of investors who were building short-term rentals, mainly in Southeast Asia and in Germany at that time.
Building.
Rental arbitrage for Airbnb.
Yeah, okay.
And so, and it was because I trusted the mentor, because I knew that mentor personally, you know, and I admired his lifestyle, and he was giving out value for free, you know, on his blog post. That time, it was a time when people were more blogging before Instagram became really big. And so I trusted the value that I would get out of this purchase, you know. And yeah, it was the best investment in my life, you know. Sometimes when I look back, just the other day, I think it was last month, I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and this purchase, right, this masterclass that I bought for Airbnb costed me $1,000. That was a lot of money for someone who doesn't have much, right? I told him, it's incredible. I was so scared to spend that money, thinking, what if it doesn't work out? Knowing damn well that it's all on me, that it will work out if I stay committed to the process, right? If I follow the roadmap, I will succeed. He was living proof that it works, the mentor. So, but still I had this fear of, what if it doesn't work out, right? And so I told my friend, imagine the life that this purchase, investment in myself, allowed me to live, the transformation, like it changed my entire life, you know? A life that I could have not even dared to dream about at that time. Traveling the African continent full time, if you follow my YouTube channel, right? Having the freedom to decide when I work, how long I work, traveling when I work, when I want, where I want to travel to. If I had known that this will be the outcome of this investment in myself, I would have even invested 10,000 euro for this course. You know what I mean?
Understood.
So this is what I mean is by how I treat any purchase now, whether it's furniture, whether it's, school education, whether it's a masterclass, an online course, right? If the value that I get out of this purchase is bigger than the money that I invest to, I'm buying it.
That makes sense. But let me track you back, Kidogo. You said when you're in Germany, you are broke, right? You also mentioned somewhere that you had a job 9 to 5 and you had the comfort of like employment, right? But you also say you had the fear of spending money. How are you broke and fear is a good motivator? You fear spending, but you're still broke. Isn't that a paradox?
No, actually not, because in Germany, right, people work themselves, like they grind themselves to the ground. They have 2 jobs, right, 3 jobs. And I think also it was partially mismanagement, right? Not understanding how you can make the money work for you, right?
You can mismanage money without spending it.
Yes, absolutely. Like for instance, also like wasting money on certain things. Let me give you an example. I just came back from Germany and I realized also with my mom when I was doing her paperwork, how much money she was wasting for insurances. You will laugh, you will never believe me if I tell you how many insurances they sell to one single person and how much money they take from you on a monthly basis. So I was going with her through her finances. And it's funny because I had the same insurances back then when I was living in Germany. For instance, you have an insurance for, it's called like when you cause damages for somebody else, right?
Third party.
Yes,
Something.
exactly.
Yes.
So they will charge you $20 for that per month. Then she had extra insurance for glass. You know this, they call it Ceran cooking field. And that's the trap, because they govern you, they control you by fear, you know? The insurances, the government, they will tell you, you need this insurance. What if, do you know how much this stove costs? $700. If you take an insurance which costs you $10 per month, right? In case that breaks, you will get the refund for the whole stove. So she was paying in total €80 for that per year. Since 20 years, not a single time did it broke, you know, did it break, not a single time. Insurance for, what else do you have? Travel insurance, yearly. When most of the people, they don't even make it once to take a vacation per year, you know? Well, stop it, you know.
Wow.
So
No, I'm actually following, because I'm tempted to go into probabilistic. It's very interesting that you say they invest in fear. I didn't look at it from that perspective. You spend money because you fear losing money. It's a very interesting mix-up, right?
no, you fear spending money because you're scared to lose money, and then you store your money on your bank account, you know? Because that's what I mean. It's also personal and the upbringing, because we were raised and programmed also by the family, from our culture, who experienced starvation, right, and hunger. They have they have this mindset, you know, you have to always put money aside for bad days, because that's how they survived famine, you know? So
Yeah.
the money is safe, don't spend it for the bad days, you know? And so instead of leaving your money on the bank, you should invest the money in yourself. And the reason why, even though I was scared to spend money, I was still broke in the end of the month, was because of all the bills, you know, student debt that you pay off. Because I got also, how do you call it, a scholarship that I have to pay back, right? Oh, so, yeah, it's crazy. People don't even understand the high cost of living, for instance. They don't understand where is all my money going to in the end of the month.
Okay, so this means in that mindset, it's a mindset of freedom, all right? So you leave Germany, you come to Africa. Do you come because you have a job, or do you come because you believe you can start from zero and build something?
So I must say, when I moved to Ethiopia, I started prior to that, a year before, started my first online business. I was selling products, private labeled products on Amazon. Okay?
Okay.
And even if that didn't bring me the biggest profit, I was able to manage that remotely, that business, plus my incentive was two, basically. So when you make money in euro, US dollars, right? And when you work remotely, that's when I learned about the concept of GeoArbitrage. That means move to a country where the cost of living is significantly lower. With the same money that you are making now, you will be able to put more aside at the end of the month. Because rent is a third of what you spend. That's why many digital nomads move to Bali, Thailand, you know, where the cost of living is much more affordable, where the rent is much more affordable. So that was the first thing. I believed in this concept of geo-arbitrage and wanted to put more money aside, which I then planned to invest in my own business in Ethiopia. And I already also knew what kind of business I want to start with. Short-term rental, building an Airbnb. And then also the opportunity I got to consult the Ministry of Tourism in Ethiopia.
Yes, yes.
But it was a limited job, only for 6 months. But I said, this is the chance. My kids are still very small. I will get a good salary in this job, even if it's a 9 to 5. On top of that, I have the safety net of the remote business that I have, right? The Amazon business. And I can basically live from that and use the money that I'm making from this job to invest it into basically building my first Airbnb. And what inspired me, like I'm a big fan, you know, I used to believe that when you make an investment, when you start a business, that great risks bring great rewards, you know? But from my own personal experience and what I learned is the best way to start a business, especially if you don't have much, right, is the opposite. Choose the least risky way that can still have a big outcome. So basically, when you lose, you don't have much to lose. But when you're big, you win big time, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And so I asked myself again, you know, that helped me a lot also in terms of finances, what really like gave me more confidence than to take the position, accept the position and move, because after all, it's like a big responsibility moving with 2 children as a single mother to Ethiopia. Instead of thinking, what if I fail, I asked myself, what if I win? And so I basically mapped out the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Best case scenario, after 6 months, when I have done the job for a tourism commission in Ethiopia, I have built by that time a successful Airbnb business that makes profit, right? That allows me to stay in Ethiopia, that allows me to live from that and reinvest and scale and expand. Okay?
Okay.
The worst case scenario, I wrote everything down. I really recommend this technique, right? The worst case scenario would be after 6 months, okay, the business failed. I lost maybe 10,000 euro, 15,000 euro, but I go back to Germany. I can start in my own old job, because in Germany, I was also working full-time as a trainer for refugees and at schools. And then so I could immediately get back into my job. The worst case scenario would be I have to work as a waiter in a restaurant and in a cafe. Imagine this is your worst case scenario. Your worst case scenario is the reality of many of your friends who are still stuck in these jobs, working in the same cafe that you worked at when you were studying. And your worst case scenario is someone else's best case scenario. I would get social welfare from the German state because I'm a German citizen. They would find an apartment for me. the kids could go immediately to school. That's when I realized that what do I have to lose, if that makes sense? And then I purposefully chose the Airbnb business as the best business to start with, simply because it was for me the least risky entry point into real estate, and I was always interested in real estate and buying assets like plots, apartments, things like that. And what inspired me is, I'm not sure if you know about the story, is like really mind-blowing. Have you ever heard of the Patels?
In the motel business,
Yes.
in the US.
Exactly.
Yes.
So many of them were kicked out of Uganda when Idi Amin chased out all Indians and said Africa's for the Africans, right? And they arrived in the US because India wouldn't take them back, and they would migrate to UK and the US. They came with nothing, you know, but they were very smart in terms of investing. And so they bought rundown, some rented, right, on a rental arbitrage basis, rundown motels. And with that, they basically caught two bats with one stone. So one, they would take over motels with 11 rooms, use 2 rooms for themselves, and then rent out the others. And then with the money they made, right? So like they would also fire all the stuff that was there, and then they would take over the jobs. The women would do the cleaning, the men would do the reception. It's a family business, right?
Yes, yes.
And then with that investment, they had a high ROI, you know, and then they reinvested it into the next motel, and so on and so forth. And now imagine they make up 0.1% of the population in America, but they own over 90% of the motel business in entire America. And that was for me also the benefit of it. So I understood Addis, which is has a very expensive housing market that would let Kenya look like a joke, you know, in terms of what you spend monthly. I knew, okay, I will probably spend a lot of money on renting a house for myself in this 6 months. So instead, I rent a house that has many rooms, where I have 2 rooms for me and my children, and where I can rent out the rest on a short-term rental basis to others. And so I saved, you know, a lot of money, because in the beginning it started quickly. The return started quickly to cover my own expense of living and the rent. And then not much later, after 6 months, it was making profit even. And that's when I really learned, okay, this really works, you know?
Okay, interesting. This has to do with a lot of knowledge on location, as you said, Addis. Me and my friend, I've also been interested in real estate for a long time, and we had an idea that we felt was deadly for Airbnb, and I'll tell you what killed it. So me and my friend, it's called Dr. Ken Alora, we had this idea ripe for Naivasha. And we were like, the numbers were looking so good in terms of the Airbnb business, and we had a very unique concept. Then I call a friend of mine. His name is Richard. He'll probably watch this actually. Then I call Richard because he had been helping me scout a piece of land so that our proposal can be ripe, so that we can construct the houses for ourselves. And he was like, don't even try. When people Kenyans heard that there's a boom of the Airbnb business in Naivasha, people rushed there. Some people with proper capital actually built flats and furnished the units. And they had started selling the furniture because they didn't have customers. What was wrong with our model?
I think that's a big mistake that so many investors make. I'm not sure if I told you I built the first Airbnb training program and private community for real estate short-term rental business, specifically designed for the African continent. And I have also Kenyans inside the community who asked me, yeah, we want to start an Airbnb business. Is it, we have a property in mind, an apartment in a new real estate development complex. Should we buy? Do you recommend for us to buy. And I always tell everyone who starts this business, don't buy, start small. You know, that's the whole point behind it. Start small, test the business, learn, and then if you see it's profitable, I'm crushing it, right? That's when you can think of investing into your own property. But even then, I wouldn't do that, because instead of, like, let's say I have $50,000, right? From this $50,000, I can maybe buy a small 1 or 2 bedroom apartment and furnish it. But then you are stuck to that place. What if it doesn't work out? What if, I don't know, anything happens in that area, you know? So it's a big risk, whereby when instead of making that investment, you could, with the same money, invest into 3 Airbnb properties using the rental arbitrage model. Means not owning the property. I own none of the properties that I'm renting out via Airbnb. And that allows you to have steady cash flow, right? And see, like, let's say one Airbnb in that neighborhood is crushing it and the other one isn't doing well, and you have tried your best to optimize it, and you do your research, you do the competitor analysis, and you see it's not only me, it's everyone in that area. So it has something to do with that region. You move. Mm-hmm. You are not tied to that place, you know, because you've just rented it. You rent another place, move your furniture from A to B, done. And so I think the main mistake that many people make, and I see that a lot in terms of investing in Africa, they don't do a proper market analysis. They don't really take their time to research gaps in demand, you know? So they go all in without really understanding, okay, how can I, because so many places where Airbnb, like for instance, let's say, as you said, Naivasha, everyone will be going there, right? This wouldn't hold me back personally. Instead, I would look at the competition, research them strategically, systematically, and see, okay, who's visiting this place that is underserved here in this market? And what can I offer them that the competition isn't offering? And how can I become the best option for this specific type of traveler? So they don't pick their niche before they invest. They believe that, oh, I will have a beautiful house, 20 apartments, or I will have a beautiful villa, 4 bedroom, and they market this place and design it for everyone instead of for someone specific, if that makes sense.
It does, knowing your target audience and target
Exactly.
customer. Mm-hmm. I believe you have evolved as a person from growing up. You went to school, you got a job, which I believe was a big deal, like having a job actually, right? Before you get into the money system, because that's also another level of the journey to wealth creation. You get a job, but then that job doesn't serve, when your mind opens to money mindset, things change. Plan Back to Africa happens. You're in Africa now. In fact, there's a video I'm yet to watch. In fact, I'm going to watch it this weekend on your channel called How I Manage Multiple Properties Across Africa without being present in those locations. That's an interesting video. In fact, we can actually link it up in our description so that someone interested can actually watch it from here directly. Please subscribe to Weyni's channel. So now you move to, you get a job, you plan back to Africa. Has your definition of success been changing with the moves you're making?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the way that success was defined in the society I grew up with, right? As I mentioned earlier, success was measured by how big your house is, you know, and things like that, was never really in alignment with my own values. To me, success meant something different. And if you ask most people, like, what does success mean to you? Most people would say freedom. But even freedom is personal, looks different for everyone.
Yeah, true.
And so for me also success means freedom, but the freedom to achieve my goals and my dreams, right? While at the same time living on my values without trying to get one at the expense of the other. And that life for me is here in Africa, because for me, working in Africa in the service of Africans, in the service of the diaspora, gives me so much more, right? Also in terms of success, so much more, something that cannot be measured, you know, than any Western paycheck ever would. You know, this purpose, like that you're building legacy, not just for yourself, but also for the people around you. And success, I don't measure it in terms of numbers, money, you know, but more in terms of the things that are important to me and the freedom that what I'm doing that's giving me. And that is especially time. You know, like for instance, when many people ask me, oh, Weyni, I want to invest into an apartment, I want to invest into an Airbnb business in Africa, and I see you manage it remotely, and they ask me, what is the ROI, you know? Is it worth it? And then I say, of course, yeah, you can do your calculation and estimate your return on investment. But there are certain things, especially when investing in Africa comes together with also moving to Africa, right? Because of, for instance, like the residency that you get through investment and allows you to relocate to the African continent. There are certain things and returns that cannot be measured in terms of number. For example, the time. I'm managing those businesses, those short-term rentals remotely. And it takes me approximately, when I was doing it as a side hustle, 1 hour per day, but now I decided to, because I saw the potential to make it my full-time business, I still spent around 4 to 6 hours, mainly also because of the input I give for my community that I'm mentoring, of investors who are planning also to venture into the short-term rental business. But still, you know, the value for me is I am at home when my children go to school, you know? I am at home when my children come back from school. And that is like success to me, because I grew up being pretty much on my own most of the time. My mom working, you know, on my own from a very early age. Nobody had time to come to my, to celebrate my achievements at school, cheer for me during a volleyball match, you know. And I am able to give all of this to my children because of the time that this business gave me, you know, the time and the opportunity to do the things that I love. And that's very interesting, because I think there's a big misconception. People always believe you have to find your passion and follow your passion, right, if you want to be successful. But I learned to see it differently. When I started the short-term rental business, it was not my passion. My passion was actually travel and learn about other cultures. As a cultural anthropologist, this is something that I really enjoyed, you know, expanding my horizon. But I knew that this is a great business model because of the low risk entry, you know, and because of the profitability. And even though I didn't know nothing about real estate, I knew I have to like step out of my comfort zone. It will not be easy to learn the skill, to understand it was not my passion. It became my passion when I started becoming successful, when I started seeing results. So it's like you think you have to first follow your passion, but in my experience, it's different. You do the things that must be done, okay, to succeed, whether you like them or not. And when you succeed in them and become good, that's when they become your passion, basically, you know? And so that is how I developed this passion for Airbnb through my success. It gave me a lot of time, and it gave me the freedom to do the things that I'm really passionate about, like telling stories. Started my YouTube channel, right? And so traveling the African continent with my children. And the return on investment beyond the number and the money, right? And beyond the ability to be present for your children, raise them in a continent where they learn to love each other, to be proud of their heritage and culture. And at the same time, the whole time, how do we measure time? Time is something we don't get back, right? The time is also a return of this investment that I got because of how easy this business can be managed when you have developed the right systems, right? Now I can make a YouTube video in 1 hour, and this 1 hour video will make me $2,000, you know? That's a great hourly rate, I would say. So the time, that is so precious, not just time to spend it on things that really matter to you, but also use that time to make money, you know?
Okay, very nice. So 2 things before we close. If you, knowing what you know right now, if you got an opportunity to work in Europe, let's remove the business out of it because it turns on business versus a job. Let's call it an opportunity to earn 20,000 euros in Germany and another opportunity to earn 5,000 euros in Africa. What are you going for?
Africa, of course.
No second thoughts.
Because it's the same again, you know, the 20,000 euros in Europe, what is the cost for that? Traveling to work every day and staying stuck in traffic and wasting 2 hours of your day, of your precious time you will never get back to get to your working place and back, and then working 40 hours a week, being drained, being exhausted, still not having enough time to be there for your kids, right? Maybe not being able to afford someone to help you, like a cleaner, a person that comes and help you to cook. Whereby with 5,000 euro in Africa, you can afford someone to support you, to help you, right? This again frees you time to invest that time to something that makes you even more money than what is 20,000, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense because a cleaner probably earns more than a senior bank manager.
Exactly.
Okay. So and in terms of opportunities, do you see one opportunity and run with what works? Airbnb worked, or there are other opportunities in Africa for other people outside the continent who would like to come back invest. Can the success you have experienced in real estate be replicated in other sectors?
Absolutely. I think what makes this Airbnb business so interesting is the concept of the sharing economy behind it, right?
Okay.
The same concept that Uber is based on, that one asset is shared by many people. In the case of Uber, it's a car that is being used by many people. Someone has a car and can offer this service to many people. Someone has a property and can offer this to many people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I am not a specialist on investment opportunities on the African continent. I know that there are some sectors that are booming, like agriculture, tech, and all these things, right? But I would always try to look at opportunities from my own experience and profession in the tourism industry. And the tourism industry is booming on the African continent. And so maybe if you don't want to invest into short-term rentals, let's say, then still the tourism boom, right, and the boom of short-term rentals and hotels comes with a lot of challenges and demands, like, for instance, the need for trained staff, trained cleaners, right? The demand for a professional property management. And I see, for instance, here in Nairobi, I did my research, right? There's so many Airbnbs poorly managed, and even the property management companies, the professional ones here, they are not doing a good job when I look at the properties they are managing, you know? So I think offering services, you know, in growing markets, solving a problem, you know, a demand that is there. If you can cater to that demand, solve that problem, just look at where there is growth where there is demand, and then use the low risk method to test first, to test a product first, and then, you know, scale after optimizing, of course.
Thank you. Very well put. So now you mentioned that you have a community that you're mentoring.
Yes.
For investors interested in joining your community to learn more about real estate and probably borrow a little from your experience, how can they join the community?
So there is a link on my YouTube channel. The community is called Homebase Africa, and it's basically I launched this community out of a need that I saw. There's so many masterclasses out there, Airbnb courses, but none of them, and I took them myself, none of them prepared me for the challenges I faced here on the African continent. And so I started first with content, right, in my YouTube channel. Like over the past years, I built a YouTube channel and created the biggest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest platform on the internet for free content on how to start your Airbnb business on the African continent. And the response that I got was incredible. People were trying to reach out, asking me if I do mentorship. And I wanted to build something beyond one-on-one consultations and mentorship. And what inspired me was the Patel story, the power of community. You know, there's this African saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so this is what inspired me, how this Indian community created this incredible growth, collective growth, right? Through shared values, through sharing resources and knowledge. And that's when I decided, no, I'm not going to build just an online course where everyone is for himself. I want to build a community where in this community, of course, is also a step-by-step guide, video lectures, over 90 video lectures on how to start, optimize, and scale your Airbnb and also manage it remotely. But I think the biggest value that the members see is the community, the weekly live calls, like a space where accountability is so important, where we hold each other accountable, where we empower each other, motivate each other, and also like share our resources with each other, you know?
Okay.
We don't gatekeep. There's enough for all of us. We have 5 people want to start in Nairobi. We have plenty want to start in Zanzibar. And so the goal is to eventually create a portfolio platform where we can list our properties like an alternative marketplace to Airbnb, you know, specifically for the African continent. But for now, it's more about mentorship, guidance, and community.
Okay.
And so if you want to join, then I have the link in my YouTube channel. I also have an Instagram channel that goes by the same name, whereby on my Instagram channel, I share more about the everyday life of an Airbnb host and returnee, you know, that moved back to Africa.
Okay. If you have enjoyed this conversation as I have, we can also share the link to Homebase Africa and the description of this video, the description of this video. Weyni, thank you for agreeing to come have a conversation with us, and thank you for sharing good vibes for us. Most importantly, thank you for making time for us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you're doing incredible work, you know,
thank you,
that empowers the people, and I appreciate being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're also so glad to have you. And I also believe this is my service to humanity, to get as many people as possible to understand how the systems work.
True.
Thank you.